Hi, this is Jack Stanley. I must confess I have the flu and I feel miserable. However, with that being said, I've been doing a lot of thinking and research and listening to conversations and talks. And one of the things that comes to mind is this whole concept of what we call original intent. You know, when we deal with matters of the American Supreme Court, we make judgments on original intent. My question is, original intent is not perpetual intent. And that's an important thing if you think about it. One of the major factors and battles are in our Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, which are going through a big battle at the moment of what is free speech, or the right to bear arms. Of course, in the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms is part of the idea of a militia. Now, we have to go back to the beginnings of this country. We had militias. We don't have militias anymore. But also the fact is that if indeed we are going to try to interpret the Constitution and interpret the Bill of Rights, we have to use it in a rather more intelligent manner. Thomas Jefferson, although I disagree with much of what Jefferson said at times, has had moments of absolute brilliance. And one of his statements, which makes so much sense, is that being a member of that generation that created our present Constitution and Bill of Rights, of which he was very aware of and very much involved with from a distance. He was in France during that whole thing. And it is that original intent was for that moment. It's when the watch said 9 o'clock. But the original intent may be quite different at 9:30. Of course, the way he put it is, if you cannot wear the clothes that you wore as a boy, as a man, because things have changed. And the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and its understandings have to change. That's a very difficult thing. Original intent. And sometimes we have to think that perhaps the whole concept of what we call original intent is flawed. So when we look at our laws, when we look at our Bill of Rights, and when we challenge or agree or stand by certain thoughts and ideals, perhaps we should look at the size of our clothes and the size of our body. As silly or as simple as that may sound, it is perhaps a very, very strong analogy in understanding our laws and our time. So does the Second Amendment today look the same to us as it did to those when they were framing the Bill of Rights, which was basically James Madison, who got basically suggestions from all the various states? Of course not. Freedom of the press. freedom of speech. These are battles that are going on right now. And if we were writing the Constitution today, would we write it as it is written? No. We would write it very much because we would write it for our time. Our original intent. Because our generation, our time, is completely different from a previous time. It's something to think of, something perhaps to challenge, but something that we have to be careful with as well, because it is a double-edged sword. But an interesting thing to think of. And so while I sit here and feel miserable, I figured I'd let my conscience and brain and imagination fly past the Milky Way, as John Adams used to say, and look at the Bill of Rights and look at our Constitution and that very unique statement called original intent.